Hi, my name is Abraham and I'm your big brother in recovery, coming back to you with another educational video on how to achieve sustainable sobriety. If this is your first time on the channel, I ask that you leave a comment at the bottom. Please subscribe, and by all means press the like button because it helps us with the algorithm on the search engines. It helps people find us. That's if we're adding value to you. This channel was designed to help newcomers to pursue some understanding of how simple this program really is. And many of you that follow this channel know that it is our prayer that we're giving you one word in your pursuit of sustainable sobriety, and that is hope. So anyone that is not giving you hope is not carrying the message of recovery, because number one, we don't want to tell a person that they never recover. We don't want to tell a person to keep it simple, stupid. We don't want to tell a person anything derogatory because there's a word called negative stigmas that are attached to recovery. And some people say things that are not in the literature. And one of the things I pride myself on is not beating people or bashing people with the book, but I like to leave the book or let the book be our plumb line, because it's always good to have a reference point to where we can all agree on, simply because, as our brother Malcolm X said, if you want to hide something from a brother or a sister, put it in a book, they'll never find it. So what I'd like to do today is bring some closure to what our previous 3 videos were about. So this will be the closure to the video series entitled, What is the AA Message? I am not a spokesman for Alcoholics Anonymous. All I'm doing is sharing my experience, strength, and hopes, because after 40 years of being clean and sober, the more I learn, the less I find out I know. So let's dive right into it, because I don't want to waste your time. As you recall, and this is a summarization of what we should have learned in the previous 3. So if you haven't seen the previous 3 and this is your first time landing on the channel, go back, subscribe, look at the previous 3 videos about what is the AA message. First of all, we know that Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. And our common problem is that we suffer from an illness called alcoholism. However, there is one solution, merely because there is one problem. Now, I'd like to summarize this. Number 1, if we go to our story page, remember I showed you the story page where it says Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you look under the bottom of that page, I guess you would call it the subtitle, because I write books. As a matter of fact, next week I'll be showing you our latest book created by Sobriety Society that you guys can get. But it is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered ED from alcoholism. Now let's take a look at this. You should have learned some things, but I'm just going to summarize, so this may be a short one, all right? So if you look at that, that entails the message to alcohol, for Alcoholics Anonymous. The story of who? The many thousands of men and women. You remember when we read in forward to the first edition, it says that, if you go with me to forward to the first edition in your big book, you'll see on Roman numeral page XIII, I believe that's 13, but forward to the first edition. Here are the many thousands of men and women. Hear them telling you their recount or their story. How about this? Their experience. You remember, I'm always sharing is our experience, our strength, and our what? Our hope. So if somebody's not doing that, you got to question what message are they carrying, right? See, a homing pigeon can carry a message and never look at it. And the message says, kill the pigeon upon arrival. So let's look at what the first sentence of that paragraph says. We, that's those more than 1,000 men and women, of Alcoholics Anonymous, they just told you, or more than 100 men and women who have recovered, ED, from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So look what they just told us. They just told us, first of all, who they are. They are Alcoholics Anonymous. They are the fellowship. But guess what? Your book is called Alcoholics Anonymous. Is it possible that the fellowship stopped reading the book? Because the plan of recovery is located not in the fellowship, and I'm not saying anything negative about the fellowship because it's necessary, but the plan of recovery is located in the book. How do I know it? Let's go to page, I believe it is 58, talking about the story of thousands of men and women, right? Look what they say in the second paragraph on page 58. Our, meaning those thousands of men and women, stories, there it is again, plural, disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. Here's a question. I call this step 0. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. So the question is, what do they have that I should want? Well, I'll tell you what they have. They've recovered. And guess what? I'm suffering from an illness, and I'm going to show you this. So we've clarified the first part of this one sentence. It's real simple. This is the experience of the more than 100 men and women who had already recovered from the illness that we suffer from. Now they're going to tell you that they have recovered. If you recall, back on forward to the first edition, they tell you what they recovered from. Before I go into that, look at our other videos, recovered, recovering, and recovered. You'll see the word recovering is only in our big book 2 times. So they didn't want you to stay recovering because recovering is the process to recover. But the word recovered simply means, or is simply in our book 16 times. I'm talking about the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. So guess what they intended for you to do? They intended for you to recover. Why? There are 2 types of people in recovery. Listen to this carefully. Those that are recovering and those of us who have recovered. But we are both the recovering person and the person who has recovered are both in recovery. Does that make sense to you? One has simply recovered and one is in the process of recovering. Watch this. Go to page 133, 132. Last paragraph on page 132. So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders, those that don't know about what we're doing, they're not insiders, right? Are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment or joy, your big book dictionary says, over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. Why? We recovered from the past, or we restored the wreckage of our past because we went through the steps. But why shouldn't we laugh? Laughter is a sign of healing. How do I know it? Because our big book says it on page 133. Look to the top of page 133, second line to the top, from the top. We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. There it is right there. Because in the doctor's opinion, guess what God's will is not for us to be? Restless, irritable, and discontent. Does that make sense? Go back to that paragraph again. Why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others. How can I help you if I haven't recovered? That's the question. But a lot of people are attempting to do that, but we're not, look, not throwing nobody under the bus, just reading the same book they got, right? Watch this. So, the question is, what do we recover from? Forward to the First Edition tells us we recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Here is what most people in recovery have no clue of. What did we recover? Well, that's page 72. Watch this. Page 72, first paragraph. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? Now, the person that hasn't recovered, guess what they'll tell you? You never complete your fourth step. They just said you've made it, but you don't know what to do with it. Now we're talking about step 5. Look what it says next. We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. Watch this. That's the goal right there. That's what we recover. A new attitude or a new way of thinking. Because remember, our thinking, our feeling, and our actions produce the wrong result. That's why step 3 told us to make a decision to turn our will, which is our thinking, and our life, which is our action, because they were producing the wrong result. Look what else it says that we recover. A new relationship. So that means I never had one. I had one with the created, but they're addressing here, capital C, creator. And, conjunction, discover the obstacles in the path or the obstacles in the way of preventing me from having that relationship. And guess what those are? Step 4 told me. Resentment, fear, harm to others, my sexual conduct. Real simple. Those were the things that were the obstacles in the way. How do I know it? Look what it says next. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. What is the trouble? Guess what? The big book tells us. What was the trouble? Page 62. First paragraph. Selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 form of what? Fear, not plural, singular. Self-delusion, that's game you're running on yourself. Self-seeking, notice all the self prefixes. And self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation or cause. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Watch this. So our troubles, not narcotics, not alcohol, we think are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. And then it goes on to say, above everything, we alcoholics must, there are a lot of musts in here, I'm gonna do a video on that, must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. So look what we recovered from, a seemingly hopeless state of mind. What are we attempting to recover? A relationship with our Creator. What was the problem that was standing in the way? Self. How do I know it? Self-seeking, self-centeredness. Bill said on page 14, first paragraph. Simple but not easy. Remember I told you recovery is hard, but it shouldn't be complicated. Simple program, but not easy. A price had to be paid. What's the price to recover? Because remember, sobriety is free, but recovery cost. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. That's the problem. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. So watch this. So now we know what we recover from. Watch this. How do we recover? That's an interesting question. How do we recover? Page 29. Well, let's go back forward to the first edition. It tells us, look what it says. To show other alcoholics precisely or exactly how we recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, who's them? Those that are suffering from alcoholism. We hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. Your Big Book Dictionary says authentication means proof, no other book. Look what it says next. We think this account of our experiences, talking about our story, will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend or understand that the alcoholic is a very sick person, not just sick, very. Where's that person sick at? In the mind. And besides, we are sure that our way of living, talking about the AA way of living, has its benefits for all. That means anybody suffering from the illness. It never said disease in here. It said illness. How do I know that? Well, go to page 17. Matter of fact, go to page 18. And we did all this in the past, but I'm just showing you something again. First paragraph, talking about recovered. Recovered from what? Illness of this sort. And we have come to believe it an illness. Involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all is sorry for them, and no one is angry or hurt, but not with the alcoholic illness, not disease. For with it there goes annihilation of all the things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose lives touch the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. And it goes on to say, we hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected with the illness. There are many. Do you remember when I told you on page 92, third paragraph, continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. Why we talk about body and mind? Go to page 23. We talk about body and mind that accompany it because in the first paragraph, the third line down from the top, therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in the mind rather than in the body. Why? Because the mind is killing the body and the body is killing the mind. So what's missing? The spirit. Go to page 42. Let's look at page 42 and let's look at the second paragraph, but the first sentence. Then they, meaning those 100 men and women, outline a spiritual answer and program of action. Which 100 of them follow successfully. And notice what they said. The answer is spiritual because we suffer from a state of mind and body. The answer is spiritual and conjunction program of action, which 100 of them follow successfully. That's why we can read their story because there are two types of stories. Fictional, not true. Non-fictional, true. I want to give you an Abrahamism. Opportunity is missed by most people because it comes dressed in overalls and it looks like work. That's why most people don't recover because notice it says program of action. Action is the key word. Why? Faith, step 2, without works, action, step 3 through 12 is dead. How do I know it? The journey is going to take work. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, there's an old saying, not an Abrahamism, but an old saying. Success is 10% inspiration, but 90% perspiration. It takes some work. When should we take the steps? Most people tell you take a step a year. Some people says easy does it. I know what easy does it means. It means to take the confusion out of what you're doing. But look at what Bill W. did. Go to the doctor's opinion. Roman numeral page XXV I believe that's 27. XXV II. Now you note, this is the doctor's opinion. Dr. Silkworth was Bill's doctor. He writes in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital. That was Bill W., who came under Dr. Silkworth's care in the hospital, which was Towns Hospital. And while here, guess what Bill did? He acquired some ideas, plural, which he put into practice. Practical application. How soon? At once. At once. Here's an Abrahamism. A wise person does at once what a fool does last. Both do the same thing, only at different times. I did them at once because I had a sponsor that understood the quicker he gets me to step 12, the quicker I can be happy, joyous, and free. I know there are a lot of misnomers about this, but let me ask you a question. If you've been using for 20 years, how soon do you want to get your life together? Second question, not only how soon you want to get it together, why aren't you doing it now? Because you don't know if you got 20 promised on the back end. Why put off to today, tomorrow, what you can do right now? It's a right now deal. Now, they recovered from, they say, alcoholism. Let me show you what alcoholism is. I lead it up to an illness, but let me show you what the book says on page 44. And this is going to gas you again. I know what they taught you in treatment, but let's look at what the book of Alcoholics Anonymous say. Why? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our advice. In the preceding chapters, page 44, first paragraph, you have learned, ED, something of alcoholism. That's if you read the 43 pages. Now they're going to tell you what you should have learned. We hope, meaning that's the 1,100 men and women, we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non. Most people don't know if they are or if they aren't because it's not our place to diagnose you. You have to diagnose yourself. Notice what they're going to say. If, when you honestly want to, you find you can't quit entirely. That was me. When I wanted to, I couldn't stop once I get started. Or, here's another question. If when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, I had no control because one for me was too many and 1,000 wasn't enough. You're probably alcoholic. Watch this. If that be the case, what's the case? That you're alcoholic. You may be suffering from an illness, which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So it tells me what I must have in order to recover. Dr. Silkworth told us in the doctor's opinion, there's no hope for his recovery unless he undergoes an entire psychic change. So I recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. I recover a relationship with my Creator. Alcoholism is an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. But in order for me to have that spiritual experience, I gotta go to page 60 and accept the ABCs of recovery. And the ABCs, which most people don't know, are description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, Our personal adventures before and after made clear 3 pertinent ideas: that we were alcoholic and couldn't manage our own lives. That sounds like step 1. That probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. That sounds like step 2. And God could and would if he was sought. Watch this. Being convinced. Being convinced of what? A, B, and C. That God could and would if he was sought. Let's go backwards. He can't and he ain't if you don't. Why? Because only God could do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. But we're standing in the way of that relationship with the Creator. The wreckage of the past, the resentments, the fears, the doggone harm we did to others, the sexual relationships. Watch this. So we must undergo an entire psychic change that will produce a spiritual experience, or in my case, a spiritual awakening. How do I know that? Step 12 tells me what are the goals of working the steps. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So the result of working the 12 steps is to get that awakening. Why? I must be spiritually asleep even though I'm physically woke, because there's some things I don't know. But if we go to page 567, it tells us what a spiritual experience is. But I'd like to draw your attention to the first paragraph. The term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change, psychic change, sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism, the illness, has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So what they're saying is the spiritual experience comes immediately. Bill had one, you remember? Bill had a sudden spiritual experience because he said God comes to some men gradually, but his impact on him was sudden and profound. But a spiritual awakening comes through an educational process. That's why it's in step 12. Go to the 4th paragraph on this page. You'll see where it talks about William James calls the educational variety because they develop slowly over a period of time. So, we recover from an illness, which only a spiritual experience will conquer. The only way to do that is to take the steps, take them at once, so we can recover our relationship with our Creator, and guess what? Live our life happy, joyous, and free. Look, I really hope that I've added something to you today. I just wanted to get in here and give you what I needed to give you, which was the finalization of these videos. But let me tell you something. Men don't fail, they just give up on trying. And many people don't recover because they don't really try. Like Roman numeral page XX says, 50% came to AA, and those that really tried recovered immediately and stayed that way. One can choose to go back towards safety or forward towards growth. Look, here's your man Abraham. I'm telling you that you can be happy, joyous, and free. You can recover from alcoholism. Don't let nobody tell you you can't. Please forward these videos to your friends. Press the like button. By all means, please leave me a comment. And you know what? It is my hope and my prayer that you recover and you live your life and you fulfill your purpose while you're here on this earth, because it's better to make a contribution than to always be making a deduction. Hey, this your big brother again saying, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.